Good morning, everyone. We'll begin with the greetings of Professor Yuval, the academic head of the... Let's get confused with all these names. Mandel. Please.
Yes, we have to learn it. Jack, Joseph, and Morton Mandel School for Advanced Studies in the Humanities. Good morning, everybody. Sefer Hasidim, composed in Germany in the 13th century, includes a brief account of a Jew who had learned Latin and, I quote, when he was among the Gentiles, he would recite psalms in their language. Probably he wanted to join itinerant Christian merchants on their travel. To ensure his safety, he took the precaution of concealing his Jewish identity by joining Christians when they prayed psalms. Despite being written in Hebrew, Sefer Hasidim uses twice the vernacular name Psalms instead of the Hebrew Tehillim. The story indicates that the Book of Psalms shared similar status in both Jewish and Christian liturgy. This, in itself, should not be surprising when we consider the central role of the Book of Psalms that the Book of Psalms had in the liturgy of the temple and in its ceremonies of sacrifices that later served as the springboard for the development of both Jewish prayer and Christian Mass. The two religions were also in agreement with regard to another of the book's qualities. Both attributed prophetic power to the text, thereby conferring on it a status extending far beyond to its particular time and place. Predictably, these agreements... Please outside. This is the beginnings. They are still used to come every morning, make their work. So we are in the liminal time between the construction and the academic use of the building. Predictably, these agreements also engendered tensions. I once argued in a paper that the opening verses of Pesukei de Zimra, of the Tehillim of the morning prayer, were put there to make a particular statement. The verses that open the Pesukei de Zimra, blessed are they who dwell in your house, they will praise you. They will praise you always. Blessed is the people of whom this is true. Blessed is the people whose God is the Lord. All these verses serve as a demand for exclusivity for the Jewish worshipper reciting psalms. They include a veiled underlying objective of excluding the analogous Christian use of psalms in worship. This competition naturally also reflects close association, a partnership. Christianity should be credited with the universal position that the Book of Psalms gained over time. I would like to draw on this inter-religious, multicultural closeness to welcome the participants of this conference, which brings the Psalms back to Jerusalem. This homecoming, a return of the text to the site of its composition and to the setting where it was first used liturgically, covers an extensive intellectual range by way of the Eikor Da'at HaMakom, under the able leadership of my friend Professor Yerachmiel Richie Cohen. The conference program reflects a wide spectrum of disciplines, including biblical studies, literature, music, Kabbalah, comparative religion, history, folklore, and archaeology. The conference also offers an impressive didactic diversity, which we had yesterday with lectures, workshops, study tour, and today a concert, all coming together to create a marvelous blend of speech, sounds, and sights. This is the first conference, as I said, to take place under the auspices, or should I say under the roof of the new Mandel School. We can paraphrase Psalm 30, a song for the dedication of the house of David, and recite a song for the dedication of the house of Jack, Joseph, and Morton Mandel, three rare philanthropists who brought with them a breath of fresh air, lending new animation to the study of the humanities at the Hebrew University. Professor Ilana Pardes, my friend, who launched the idea for the conference and carried it out, is also the academic director of the PhD honors program, the ICOR of the Mandel School for Advanced Studies in the Humanities. She took on this position early this year, and since that time we are making great efforts of shaping the Mandel School like that of graduate school in the United States, a framework as yet unknown in Israel. Thank you, Ilana, for granting us the privilege of dedicating the new Mandel building with a conference of this kind, a conference whose nature is both local and universal. This conference presents the ideal of particularity alongside universality, qualities to be embodied by the Mandel School for Humanities at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Let me wish you a fruitful and successful conference.
Hallelujah! Sing to the Lord a new song, his praise in the faithful's assembly. Let them praise his name in dance. On the timbrel and lyre, let them hymn to him. This is Uri's translation. I begin with a quotation from the book of Psalms, granting the first note to the grand ancient text around which our conference revolves. Psalm 149 calls for the creation of an exhilarating new song of praise. Sing to the Lord a new song, Shir Chadash. Thus highlighting the aesthetic project at stake, the psalmist's work of art. But composing songs in psalms is not set in a void. The cherished site which serves as inspiration for the psalmist is the Temple of Jerusalem. Many psalms are presented as liturgical songs sung in processions of pilgrims ascending to the temple, or as songs sung by the Levites' choir at the temple to the accompaniment of various musical instruments. Before I continue with my remarks on the topic of our conference, a few earthly praises are necessary. I'd like to express my gratitude to those who made this conference possible. First and foremost, my friend, Professor Yerachmiel Ritchie-Cohen, Ritchie in other words, the academic director of the Makom, for his generosity, encouragement, and thoughtful suggestions. We spent many hours thinking about the visual materials of the poster, so he's going to talk about it later on, but many other things as well. I'm grateful to Anat Refes, the administrative director of the Makom, for her help and willingness to think about all the details, and to Miriam Bissau, my research assistant, for her incredible commitment and superb work. She basically hasn't slept in 2 weeks. This conference is also sponsored by the Jack, Joseph, and Morton Mandel School for Advanced Studies in the Humanities. I got it right. And above all, by the PhD honors program of Mandel School. I'm delighted that this is part of the inaugural events of the new Mandel building and school. And it's a pleasure to be in this auditorium. It was inaugurated 2 days ago. So it's really fresh and new. And I'm grateful to Israel Yuval, head of the Mandel School, and to Ira Dosto, the administrative director, for their unstinting support and involvement. It's been a pleasure to work during this year. Very exciting. And yesterday we had the great pleasure of studying in workshops. I mean, this is some kind of experiment to have the PhD honors program involved in an international conference. And I think it was delightful. We both had workshops and then a tour of Mount Zion. And so I'd like to thank all the fellows of the program for making it such a wonderful experience, and to thank my students from comparative literature for joining us yesterday and today. This conference has its beginnings in a seminar on Psalms and the Book of Job, co-taught by the members of the Exegetical Imagination Research Group of Mendel's Scholion in the spring of 2012. Among my fellow travelers were Galit and Richie and Ruth and Israel joined. It was a lovely seminar. Later, this research group eventually led to the formation of a collaborative research project on aesthetics, ethics, and hermeneutics between the Hebrew University, the University of Antwerp, and Princeton University. And we already had 3 conferences, the first one at Princeton 3 years ago, then on Lament at Antwerp University, and again in Princeton last year. And it is a distinct pleasure to host the 4th conference here in Jerusalem. And I'm very grateful to my friends and partners, Vivian Liska and Lior Batnitsky, for this delightful collaboration. One more. This conference also entails a collaboration with the Department of Musicology, and the concert this afternoon is part of a series of events celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Department of Musicology, so Mazal Tov. And many thanks go to Edwin Serusi for organizing the concert. And now back to Psalm in on Jerusalem. I'll begin with Psalms on Jerusalem. In geographic terms, the Book of Psalms has had a pivotal role in making Jerusalem the privileged landscape and inscape of belief for both Jews and Christians. It's less pivotal in the Muslim world. Our conference sets out to explore the ways in which Jerusalem is represented in Psalms, from its position in the context of liturgical and pilgrim songs to its role as metaphor. Jerusalem in the Book of Psalms is multifaceted. It is the site of scenes of redemption, joy, and celebration, of the proximity to God and the house of the Lord. But it is also the quintessential locus of loss, marked by cries over the devastating destruction of the temple. And these 2 antithetical poles of Jerusalem are expressed in both personal terms, even confessional at times, as well as within a collective framework. We are primarily interested in questions of reception, in the ways in which the geographies of the Book of Psalms have traveled across their native bounds into other historical settings, acquiring new forms and meanings. Above all, we will reflect on different interpretive modes in the realms of literature and music, 2 aesthetic realms that are inextricably connected in Psalms and in the exegetical history of Psalms. The Book of Psalms is a particularly rich turf for the study of aesthetics and hermeneutics. In fact, it was one of the texts through which the aesthetic qualities of the Bible were defined during the Enlightenment. The Bible was not always venerated as a grand aesthetic touchstone. The literary Bible emerged in the 18th century, both in England and in Germany, as the invention of scholars and literati who tried to rejuvenate the Bible by transforming it, as Jonathan Sheehan taught us. Hi, Jonathan. By transforming it from a book justified by theology to one justified by culture. The aim of this hermeneutic project was not quite to secularize the Bible, though it was now construed as the product of human imagination, but rather to reconstitute its authority in aesthetic terms. Psalms held a special position within this new exegetical framework alongside the Book of Job and the Song of Songs. And the bulk of the talks will indeed focus on the modern reception of the text from the Enlightenment on, but poets and musicians, of course, could appreciate the great aesthetic power of Psalms long before it was theorized by Robert Lowith and Herder, so that we will devote some attention to earlier interpreters as well. In holding a conference on Psalms in Jerusalem, we also need to reflect on the ways in which the text is inscribed and used in the city. In the past few weeks, I followed a whole array of references to Psalms and Jerusalem. I must say it was really fascinating. 2 weeks ago on Jerusalem Day, Yom Yerushalayim, the renowned verse from Psalm 122, "Our feet are standing in your gates, Jerusalem, Jerusalem built like a town that is joined fast together, עיר שחוברה לה יחדיו, was evoked time and again in official celebrations of the unification of Jerusalem after the Six-Day War. On that same day, on May 17th, there was a big ad on the front page of Haaretz, sponsored by the Peace Now movement, אם אשכחך ג'בל מוקבר, תשכח ימיני. If I forget thee, O Jabal Mukaber, may my right hand forget her cunning. And Jabal Mukaber is a Palestinian neighborhood in Jerusalem. The ad offers a provocative variation on the renowned lament, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, using it to protest the Jewish settlements in the midst of Palestinian neighborhoods of Jerusalem. On the evening of Yom Yerushalayim, there was a big concert in מתחם התחנה, titled Ma'aminim, Believers, which brought together believers of the different faiths in Jerusalem, Jews, Muslims, and Christians, who chose to pray and sing together in 3 different languages, Hebrew, Arabic, and English, against the current wave of racism. Some of the most resonant prayers for peace in Jerusalem were from the book of Psalms. On Shavuot, about a week ago, hundreds of Haredi men and women, both Mizrahi and Ashkenazi, flocked to the tomb of David on Mount Zion, reciting psalms in commemoration of King David's birth and death. Both events allegedly took place on Shavuot. And on Monday, just a few days ago, there was a violent confrontation at Mount Zion, as you all know. I focused on Jerusalem today, but the history of Mount Zion reminds us that conflicts over the legacy of David, the psalmist, in the city do not begin in current times. From the Middle Ages onward, we find disputes between Christian, Jews, and Muslim over the tomb of David. And in fact, Mount Zion is a site that curiously combines a synagogue, a mosque, and a church at once. And in our tour yesterday, Yiscom mentioned the fact that maybe it could also serve as some kind of site of reconciliation one day. What I find no less fascinating about the reception of the Book of Psalms in the city and elsewhere is its resonance in everyday life and in pivotal personal and familial events. Inspired by the grand catalog in Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, where he depicts the variegated folk of America, I invented a catalog of different moments where psalms are invoked, or could be invoked, in Jerusalem on a daily basis. The young woman reads a booklet of psalms at Hadassah Hospital as she waits in a corridor for her mother to come out of the operation room. The bereaved family recites psalms according to the letters of the deceased's name in the cemetery of Givat Shaul. Im eshkachech Yerushalayim tishakach yemini declares a rabbi in a secular wedding just before the elated bridegroom steps on a wrapped glass. The pilgrims from Nicaragua sing psalms as they enter the Holy Sepulchre, the old city of Jerusalem. The lunatic, remember that Whitman has a lunatic there. The lunatic, struck by Jerusalem syndrome, walks by Zion Gate and declares that he is King David and the Messiah. The Jerusalem Baroque Orchestra offers a song concert, mostly Bach and Handel, at the Jerusalem Theater. We'll have the privilege of hearing them later on today. The retired high school teacher double-clicks on the link to the Psalms of Ascent, Shir HaMa'alot, in the website of Invitation to Piyut, and listens to its musical adaptation according to the Chaleb tradition. Visiting teenagers from Berkeley, this is for my Berkeley friends here, sing Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah with a guitar as they sit on the grass facing the King David Tower. And literature students in a seminar at Hebrew University discuss the iconoclastic use of Psalm 137 in Amichai's love poetry. And some of you, dear friends, may be holding the old 50-shekel note of Shai Agnon in your purses or wallets. If you look closely, you will find on this note the exquisite quotation from Agnon's banquet speech on receiving the Nobel Prize in 1966. The quotation, which revolves around the songs of David, goes as follows. As a result of the historic catastrophe in which Titus of Rome destroyed Jerusalem and Israel was exiled from its land, I was born in one of the cities of the exile, but always I regarded myself as one who was born in Jerusalem. In a dream, in a vision of the night, I saw myself standing with my brother Levites in the Holy Temple, singing with them the songs of David, king of Israel, melodies such as no ear has heard since the day our city was destroyed and its people went into exile. I suspect that the angels in charge of the shrine of music, fearful lest I sing in wakefulness what I had sung in dream, made me forget by day what I had sung at night. For if my brethren, the sons of my people, were to hear, they would be unable to bear their grief over the happiness they have lost. To console me for having prevented me from singing with my mouth, they enable me to compose songs in writing. Agnon regards David's songs, and actually Shir HaShirim is in the background too, as a primary legendary genre that may appear in the world of dreams but not in daylight. In his wakefulness, in the exilic modernist world in which he writes, Agnon can only grieve over the poetic happiness that had been lost and find some consolation in composing songs in writing. We may not be able to retrieve the original sounds of songs, but from an exilic position, this is why I chose Lillian's beautiful etching by the waters of Babylon for our poster, we will attempt to explore the ever-surprising and ever-changing exegetical history of songs in on Jerusalem. And before we move on to the different panels, I've asked Robert Alter, our keynote speaker, who received the honorary doctorate this week, and we're going to have an extensive introduction later on, and Ruta Cohen, to read to us two of the most beautiful psalms of all time, Psalm 23 and Psalm 42. And I'm very grateful to both of you for your willingness to do so. So we'll begin with Ruta Cohen and with the Hebrew, and after that, Uri will read from his superb translation of Psalms into English. Thank you.
אני מתחילה עם תהלים כ"ג, 23. מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר. בנאות דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך דגי צל מוות, לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפניי שולחן נגד צורריי, דישנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. תהילים מ"ב 42. למנצח משכיל לבני קורח. כאייל תערוג על אפיקי מים, כנפשי תערוג אליך אלוהים. צמאה נפשי לאלוהים לאל חי, מתי אבוא ואראה פני אלוהים. הייתה לי דמעתי לחם יומם ולילה, באמור אליי כל היום, איה אלוהיך. אלה אזכרה ואשפכה עלי נפשי, כי אעבור בסך עדדם, עד בית אלוהים, בכל רינה ותודה, המון חוגג. מה תשתוכחי נפשי ותהמי עלי? הוכי לי לאלוהים, כי עודנו ישועות פניו. אלוהי, עלי נפשי תשתוכח, על כן אזכרך, מארץ ירדן וחרמונים, נהר מצער. תהום אל תהום קורא לכל צינוריך, כל משבריך וגליך עלי עברו. יומם יצווה אדוני חסדו, ובלילה שירו עמי, תפילה לאל חיי. אומרה לאל סלעי, למה שכחתני? למה קודר אלך בלחץ אויב? ורצח בעצמותיי, חרפוני צורריי, ואומרם אליי כל היום, איה אלוהיך. מה תשתוכחי נפשי, ומה תהני עליי? הוכי לי לאלוהים, כי עוד עודנו ישועות, פניי ואלוהי.
I have to say that Ruth's wonderful reading reminded me of how beautiful the Hebrew is, so that any translation is only a distant approximation. Again, I'll begin with the 24th Psalm, a David Psalm. The Lord is, the 23rd Psalm, a David Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In grass meadows he makes me lie down. By quiet waters guides me. My life he brings back. He leads me on pathways of justice for his name's sake. Though I walk in the vale of death's shadow, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, it is they that console me. You set out a table before me in the face of my foes. You moisten my head with oil. My cup overflows. Let but goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for many long days. And Psalm 42. To the lead player, a maskil for the Korahites. As a deer yearns for streams of water, so I yearn for you, O God. My whole being thirsts for God, for the living God. When shall I come and see the presence of God? My tears become my bread day and night. As they said to me all day long, where is your God? These do I recall and pour out my heart when I would step in the procession, when I would march to the house of God with the sound of glad song of the celebrant throng. How bent my being, how you moan for me. Hope in God, for yet will I acclaim him for his rescuing presence. My God, my being is bent for my plight. Therefore do I recall you from Jordan land, from the Hermons and Mount Mizar. Deep unto deep calls out, all at the sound of your channels. All your breakers and waves have surged over me. By day the Lord ordains his kindness, and by night his song is with me. Prayer to the God of my life. I would say to the God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why in gloom do I go, hard pressed by the foe? With murder in my bones, my enemies revile me when they say to me all day long, where is your God? How bent my being, how you moan for me. Hope in God, for yet will I acclaim him, his rescuing presence and my God.